Trump calls for the end of critical race theory training in most of the federal programs out there, so we'll talk a bit about that. California is having flex alerts about their utilities and telling people to unplug certain appliances throughout certain points of the day. Serbia and Kosovo have come to a historic agreement in the light of the fact that there are extended military exercises going on in Lithuania rather. And Jacob Blake restores my faith in humanity. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got we actually don't have a ton to get to today. This was a fairly slow weekend as far as news goes, especially seeing how I've packed this top bar to a point where you could almost not read it at certain points coming out of a Friday going back into a Monday here. But hey, it's a holiday as well, so I don't know if everybody just actually stopped fighting for a few days or what happened there, but we do still have some stuff to get to from over the weekend here. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry the generational gap in which John has admitted that he sucks at archery. We also carry the Daily Ignoramus, the Freckles and Brick Show, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Breakdown with Birkenhoff. So come on over there and check us out over there. Pick up some of our swag and help us support great creators. All right, let's get into the Dow, which we'll see what happened on Friday. We will be looking at this same chart tomorrow because the markets are closed today. Excuse me. So, it looks like a little bit of a smiley face throughout the day, and we dropped a little bit below close as everything closed out throughout the day here. At 4 p.m., we're at 28,292.73. Which was a little bit below the previous close and even below some of the futures there. So it was a little bit of a rough and tumble day on the Dow, but people are also coming out and saying, hey, well, this is over and prepare for all your retirements to crash and we'll go back to 10,000 on the Dow again and all kinds of other stuff that I don't foresee happening. Oh, I don't have the live chat up. Let's get the live chat up here. So let's see what we have going on in the news. So from IBD, Labor Day deal, go buy your stuff instead of just reading it online. From Ed Carson, Dow Jones Futures. After stock market rally dive, what to do now? Tesla gets S&P 500 surprise. Dow Jones Futures were little changed versus fair value Monday morning, pairing losses. S&P 500 futures fell modestly and NASDAQ futures declined sharply after a whipsaw stock market sell-off last week. Tesla stock is likely to fall sharply after not getting an invite to the S&P 500 index. Well, we're going to drop our stock price because we didn't get to go and play. That's not actually how it works, but that's just how it sounded the way that Ed Carson wrote it there. The stock market rally had flashed warning signs in the days leading up to last week's sharp sell-off fueled by Tesla and Apple stock splits, as well as Salesforce.com and Zoom Video earnings. By Wednesday, many top software and other tech leaders were going vertical, including Adobe, Netflix, and Nvidia, pushing the NASDAQ composite to hit several levels, indicating a high risk of pullback. The stock market rally sold off sharply Thursday but found support Friday and slashed intraday losses, but top stocks suffered heavy damage, with big outside negative weeks and many tumbling through key support. Recent buys flailed or failed. There are three ways the stock market rally could go from here, but in each of these cases, investors should be cautious about any new buys, aside from swing trades, and still consider some further profit taking. But build watch lists of stocks holding up well, such as Intuitive Surgical and Taiwan Semiconductor. When the dust settles and the market looks favorable, you want to be ready. Tesla stock won't join the S&P 500 index. Along with its 5-for-1 stock split, Tesla has rallied in recent weeks in anticipation that it would join the S&P 500, and that would spur index mutual funds and ETFs to acquire big stakes in the electric car maker, giving Tesla stock a pop. But late Friday, S&P Dow Jones indices declined to add Tesla to the S&P 500 index. Instead, the S&P 500 will add Etsy, Teradyne, and Catalent. They will replace H&R Block, Coty, and Kohl's, which are dropping to the S&P Midcap 400. Do people actually use H&R Block still? I don't live in the city anymore, and I don't go there. I don't see them popping up around Walmart anymore because I don't go to Walmart anymore. I would imagine they still use them, but I mean, to the most part at this point, I would rather go to a small business, and I do go to a small business to have my taxes prepared instead of going to H&R Block, a big corporate business who makes mistakes every once in a while. But hey, maybe people still do. I don't know. It's unclear why Tesla wasn't included. The stock could be added to the benchmark index at a later date. Tesla stock fell 6.4% late Friday after rebounding to close the session up 2.8%. Etsy, Catalent, and Teradyne stock all gained late Friday. Catalent stock had closed the week just below the 50-day line, while Etsy finished 4.3% under that key level and Teradyne 8.7%. Tesla is on IBD leaderboard along with Apple, Adobe, Netflix, Nvidia, and Intuitive Surgical stock. Adobe stock and Salesforce are on the IBD long-term leaders list, and Adobe, Netflix stock are on the IBD 50. For the futures, Dow Jones futures were just above fair value, while S&P 500 futures lost 0.3%. NASDAQ 100 futures sank 1.4%, with Tesla stock a major drag. But that would still indicate the NASDAQ would open well above its 50-day moving average. While Dow Jones Industrial Average stock futures trade Sunday and Monday, U.S. stock markets are closed Monday for the Labor Day holiday. Other stock exchanges around the world will be open. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere, along with what's going on a holiday, doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, that's what they have to say over on IBD. I've got one from MarketWatch. CNBC didn't really weigh in today because nobody's going to be trading today, but let's see what MarketWatch had to say from this. Here's why the Dow plunged last week and what's ahead for the stock market from Mark DeCambry. A bout of volatility returned to financial markets with a vengeance last week, disrupting what had been nearly uninterrupted climb to records for U.S. stock indices and raising questions about the path for Wall Street headed into a hornet's nest of challenges. Perhaps the overarching question is, what the heck just happened to the equity markets in the 48 hours after the S&P 500 index, SPX, and NASDAQ Composite Index Wednesday notched their 22nd and 43rd closing records of 2020 respectively, and the Dow Jones scored its first finish above 29,000 since February, bringing it within 2% of its February 12th all-time closing high. From the bulls' perspective, not a lot has changed. Bullish investors see the promise of lower interest rates for years to come and further injections of money by the Federal Reserve into various parts of the financial system, along with perhaps another fiscal stimulus from the government, as buttressing the market and offering a floor against future dramatic losses. Optimists see the slump that the equity market experienced this week as a bump in the road to greater gains. Since the current bull market kicked off in March, there have only been two pullbacks of more than 5%. Recent bull markets have tended to have 3 or 4 setbacks over the first 9 months, wrote SunTrust Advisory Chief Market Strategist Keith Lerner in a research note on Thursday. See the chart. Lerner also noted that the 5-month winning streak for the S&P 500 since August, which has only occurred 27 times since 1950, is a good sign because it tends to imply that further returns are ahead. So, investors may view this retreat as a natural corrective phase that removes some of the euphoric froth from equity valuations that had far exceeded the metrics that pragmatic investors use to assess an asset's value compared against its peers. MarketWatch's William Watts wrote last Thursday, citing Dan Suzuki, Deputy Chief Investment Officer at Richard Bernstein Advisors, that technology stocks, particularly a cohort that includes Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Microsoft, Apple, and Google parent Alphabet, had seen their valuations rise by dint of multiple expansion or rapidly rising prices, while other segments of the market had seen earnings estimates fall out of whack with their prices, distorting the P portion of the commonly used price-to-earnings metric, or P to E, used to gauge a stock's worth. But these two groups of stocks have gotten more expensive for completely different reasons, he wrote. FanMag's PE has risen because of their P prices has gone up faster than their E, while the P and E for the rest of the S&P 500 has expanded because its E has gone down much more than P, wrote Suzuki. So there's a lot of jargon there, but from what they're saying here and what I'm reading up out of this is the fact that, yeah, I mean, the prices have gone up, but the earnings haven't gone with it. Simple supply and demand. So now we need to get people back to work so we can start to see some of the earnings jump back up and go forward again. So that's what we're going to see up out of the markets here for today. We will check back in with more of that tomorrow as the markets open and people start going back to trading and we see exactly what they want to do with the stock market for the next coming week. So let's see what's in the news. And I want to start with a sort of a night and day difference of how things are reported here. So we will start reading from Fox News, and then we will go on and see what Vox had to say about the same thing. And this is an interesting juxtaposition. Two outlets reading the same news story with very, very different tones about them. So, starting with Adam Shaw over at Fox News, Trump ends critical race theory training for federal employees, calls it a sickness. The Trump administration is halting a critical race theory training in federal agencies, with the White House officials calling it anti-American propaganda. This is a sickness that can be allowed to continue, President Trump tweeted. Please report any sightings so we can quickly extinguish. And this is the tweet that actually brought this to my attention from Russ Vought. The days of taxpayer-funded indoctrination trainings that sow division and racism are over. Under the direction of at POTUS, we are directing agencies to halt critical race theory trainings immediately. Russ Vought, director of the Office of Management and Budget, wrote a memo informing agencies of the Trump's instructions to stop using controversial forms of training on critical race theory, white privilege, and any other training or propaganda effort that teaches or suggests either that the United States is inherently racist or evil country, or that any race or ethnicity is inherently racist or evil. It has come to the President's attention that the executive branch agencies have spent millions of taxpayer dollars to date training government workers to believe divisive anti-American propaganda, Vought wrote in the memo that to heads of federal agencies and offices. Vought cited reports of executive branch employees being taught in the classes designed to educate employees about white privilege and other concepts that virtually all white people contribute to racism and that it is racist to believe that America is the land of opportunity. Excuse me. These types of trainings not only run counter to the fundamental beliefs of which our nation has stood since its inception, but they also engender division and resentment within the federal workforce, Vought said. The move comes after Discovery Institute researcher Christopher Rufo told Tucker Carlson tonight that critical race theory had become the default ideology of the federal government. Rufo pointed to several of his own findings, including that Sandia National Laboratories, which designs nuclear weapons, held a mandatory retreat called White Man's Caucus on Eliminating Racism, Sexism, and Homophobia in Organizations. A training document obtained by Rufo listed a series of examples of white male culture. Those included gulf, quick decisions, self-confident, risk-taking, brave, and other attributes that the document notes were generated by participants. In July, the federally created National Museum for African American History and Culture faced a wave of backlash for publishing a graphic that linked things like the nuclear family and decision-making rather to whiteness. The museum later removed the graphic. Rufo claims to have found instances of similar trainings across a long list of federal agencies, including the FBI. Proponents of the training say it can help the government eliminate bias in areas such as the awarding of federal contracts. M.E. Hart, an attorney who has conducted diversity training sessions for businesses and the federal government, told the Washington Post that it can improve morale, cooperation, and efficiency. If we're going to live up to this nation's promise, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We have to see each other as human beings, and that we have to do whatever it takes, including taking whatever classes make that possible, Hart told the Post. These classes have been very powerful in allowing people to do that, and we need them more than ever. There's a danger here. So I want to point a couple things out as we're looking into this and as we're trying to understand what we're seeing from all of this, and that is the fact that this is critical race theory is anti-white. Now, of course, people come out and argue, well, there's been anti-black for years, and that's just everything we see, and this is a correction. No, this is anti-white. Plain and simple, from everything that we're seeing off of this, critical race theory is anti-white training. And that flies in the face of all men are created equal. We are seeing all of this across the country right now. Anti-racism. We saw certain presidential candidates talk about the need for anti-racism. Anti-racism is black supremacy, unfortunately. And it flies in the face of what the Declaration had said. All men are created equal. So that's what we're seeing up out of these agencies, and good on the Trump administration for coming in and bringing this down. There should be no supremacist language anywhere for any race, anything out there to anybody. Supremacy has no place in this country. That's what the Declaration of Independence stood for. But I wanted to point out what Vox had to say about this exact same thing and the interest of it. So the headlines are almost identical off of this, except for a couple of words. Trump orders federal anti-racism training to be ended, calling it a sickness. From Riley Beggin. President Trump directed federal agencies on Friday to end diversity training programs, calling them on Saturday a sickness that cannot be allowed to continue. Trump's decisions to eliminate the anti-racism training, featuring critical race theory and discussions of white privilege, according to the directive, comes amid a nationwide reckoning on racial injustice that the president has firmly opposed. The change was announced in a memo sent to the heads of federal agencies from Russell Vought, director of the Office of Management and Budget. Vought wrote that Trump ordered the sessions canceled after learning federal agencies are spending millions of dollars training employees in divisive, anti-American propaganda. And that, of course, is in quotes. Those trainings taught workers that virtually all white people contribute to racism or benefit from it, the memo claims, adding that some of the trainings have stated there is racism embedded in the belief that America is the land of opportunity, or the belief that most qualified person should should receive the job. These teachings engender a division and resentment within the federal workforce and contradict the fundamental beliefs of the nation, Vought claimed, adding that is why Trump has asked him to stop these divisive, un-American propaganda training sessions. The memo repeatedly cites press reports as having illuminated the substance of the trainings. While it doesn't identify what these reports are, a New York Post opinion piece on the subject was published Tuesday and picked up by Fox News, which the president watches almost religiously. That's what I have to say to you, Vox, on that one. Agencies have been told to begin identifying trainings related to critical race theory or white privilege, as well as any training that suggests the U.S. is inherently racist or evil country, or that any race or ethnicity is inherently racist or evil, and to investigate ways to end their contracts with those providing the instructions following the reporting on the memo. Vought tweeted, "The days of taxpayer-funded indoctrination trainings that sow division and racism are over." Trump, too, celebrated the decision on Twitter, highlighting the positive reactions of some supporters through retweets and by asking people to report any sightings of the training so we can quickly extinguish. And Vox actually, broken clock every once in a while. Broken clock is right twice a day. Vox brought this up, and there's racism embedded in the belief that America is the land of opportunity and the most qualified person should receive the job. And we saw this come from the Smithsonian Center for African American History. We saw exactly that. The nuclear family, keeping time, a schedule. So many other things just like that are inherently racist. And we should stop playing the white man's game, is exactly what that article said before they went through and edited it. And I do have an archived version of the original article from that, and it's over on my channel from when I read it, way back in, when the hell was that? That was May when I read that. And yes, the best person should get the job. If you're going through and trying to fill racial quotas or gender quotas or any other kind of quota, you're not getting the best people for the job. Just look at the resume blind and see how the person presents himself and pick the person who's best suited to do the job. People are people. People all have different talents. So I don't know why this is a controversy, but of course, because President Trump did it, it has to be a controversy, just like pretty much everything else that he did, or everything else that he does. I haven't been able to verify this, but I was listening to Tim Pool while I was driving back from central part of the state yesterday. And we'll probably talk about this tomorrow when I can verify it. But I mean, there's talk right now that Kamala is anti-vaxxing because she won't take any vaccine that the Trump administration will put out. This should be non-controversial stuff, just like the Trump vaccine. If people want to take it, they want to take it, as long as it's not government mandated. But yes, of course, now she's going to be anti-vax because it's going to come from the Trump administration. It could be another win for Trump. I'm not going to give Trump another win. Everything's got to be controversial to this guy, and that's part of the reason that we're sitting up in the mess that we're in this country. And like I said on Friday, this is honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that he came in from the outside, if it was anybody else from the Beltway that had the exact same accomplishments that Trump had right now, he'd be nothing but a C-plus president that would be forgotten to the annals of history like Grover Cleveland. Do you know anything that Grover Cleveland got done? Do you know anything about Grover Cleveland? No, he had an essentially eventless B- presidency. Now, yeah, you can think about Roosevelt, either Roosevelt for that matter, Lincoln, Clinton for that matter, for the notoriety of that, Reagan. But, you've got your Grover Clevelands, your Millard Fillmores, even a Jimmy Carter, who didn't really get anything accomplished, and they just got lost to the annals of history. If it wasn't for the fact, like I said, that Trump came out from the outside, this would just be your average C- presidency. But that's what I have to say on that. Let's keep moving down the list here from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And this is another thing, too, that we're seeing here, just some of the propaganda that's coming up out of these news outlets. Marjorie Taylor Greene writing political fringe to Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't do social distancing. On a muggy Saturday morning in August, Greene swapped hugs and handshakes with dozens of people at Rome's Coosa Valley Fairgrounds. Elderly women in Trump 2020 t-shirts, little girls who peered down the scope of Greene's AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, self-proclaimed bikers for Trump who rumbled on their Harleys. Greene, the Republican nominee for Congress from Georgia's 14th District, disregarded reminders posted throughout the Fairgrounds pavilion of a local ordinance requiring face masks. At public gatherings, she was concerned with matters bigger than what she calls the Chinese virus. She came to this GOP rally to warn her supporters about socialism, about the Marxist Black Lives Matter movement, about Antifa, about the inexorable degradation of the U.S. if voters don't re-elect President Trump, and to send her to Washington to help him. I haven't even won the general election yet, Greene said, and the media is already very upset about who I am. She pointed to a larger-than-life poster of Trump on the stage behind her, and they're going to continue to be upset because I'm going to support this guy. Greene's candidacy, however, is rooted in some of the darkest corners of American politics, places the FBI has described as potential breeding grounds for domestic terrorism. An investigation by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution found for the past 3 years, Greene has used a network of far-right websites and social media accounts to spread baseless, often absurd conspiracy theories that demonize Trump's political enemies while raising her profile among extremist groups. The Journal-Constitution viewed more than 10 hours of Greene's videos and examined dozens of her articles and blog posts. Since late 2017, Greene's claims have closely tracked the conspiracy theories of QAnon, the right-wing movement organized around a false narrative that Trump is battling a deep state of politicians, Hollywood actors, and corporate executives who are involved in a satanic cult that run an international child sex trafficking ring. Hello, Epstein didn't kill himself. Morons. Federal law enforcement authorities attribute several violent crimes to QAnon adherents, including homicide in Staten Island, New York, and a threat against former Vice President Joe Biden, the Democratic presidential nominee. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would have got a lot more airplay because I've never heard of that. And I am almost positive that we would be hearing about that nonstop wall-to-wall if that was true. No one has accused Green of inciting violence, although she has expressed support for a 17-year-old charged with killing 2 protesters during a racial unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, calling it the first phase of a new civil war. But Green has repeatedly echoed QAnon doctrine, hurling wild accusations at elites who stand in Trump's way. She alleged that former President Barack Obama used henchmen from MS-13 street gang to murder a Democratic National Committee staff member who supposedly provided damning emails to WikiLeaks ahead of the 2016 election. Yes, Green said of Obama in one video, I do believe he's a Muslim. She suggested that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and other prominent Democrats would be jailed for participating in pedophilia and human sacrificing. She accused House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of treason, a crime that, as Green noted, may be punishable by death. She also questioned whether an airplane actually crashed into the Pentagon during the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, described prominent Jews as puppet masters who financed global evil, and spoke about preserving Confederate monuments and our nation's purity. So, for the most part, I would need to see some citation of this, and I would want to compare most of what she said against what she's actually running on and what she is planning to do. Now, that's not to say that she didn't do any of this, but the same thing would happen, honestly, right now, if I were to ever run for office at this point. The same stories would come out, because I use DLive, which hosts a lot of various different creators who spout some of the same things, but also hosts mainline creators like Tim Pool, Sargon of Akkad, Styx Hexenhammer. Mainline, just regular central creators go onto that site as well. So, I don't know. I don't know how much truth is rooted in this, but I do, I wanted to take some time and show everybody what the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is putting out there against people that they don't want to see elected. So, let's keep moving on here from over on Twitter. So we're going to read the tweet from the mayor of LA, and he's actually going to come right out and say it. And then we'll read the news story that goes along with it. So, tweeted out from the mayor of LA's office. It's almost 3 p.m. Time to turn off major appliances, set the thermostat to 78 degrees, or use a fan instead. Turn off excessive lights and unplug any appliances you're not using. We need every Californian to help conserve energy. Please do your part. #FlexAlert. And of course, you can see some of the comments that came along with this. Pirate Spitter says, you're a failure. You're Jimmy Carter, telling everyone to put on a sweater. Senya says, I have nothing clever to say except fuck you. And Jacob Airy from the Daily Wire says, I'll just form a peaceful protest around my AC. So this led me to go out and find a new article that went along with this and read it out for you guys. So we will read from KRON4 out of San Francisco. California ISO issues Flex Alert through Monday. Officials with the California ISO have issued a statewide Flex Alert beginning on Saturday and extending through Monday, September 7th. The ISO declared a Stage 2 emergency at 5:57 p.m. to prevent the power grid from entering Stage 3. At 8:34 p.m., California ISO lifted the Stage 2 emergency, thanking everyone for their conservation. The Flex Alert is in effect to urge consumers to conserve energy during this weekend's statewide heat wave that is causing a rise in energy consumption. The alert will be in effect between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. for all 3 days. Temperatures during this heat wave are expected to peak Sunday, pushing demand for energy beyond levels of available supply. Based on the current forecast and without significant conservation efforts, the ISO planning for the potential for rotating power outages throughout the state between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Sunday. What is going on in California that you can actually have rolling blackouts like this? I understand that there are a buttload of people that live in California, but you don't see this in any other part of the country. Why are they so mismanaged over in California that they have to come out and tell you when you can and cannot use the electricity that you pay for? I don't understand any of this, honestly. But this is a system that they want to put in around the rest of the country as well. Keep all of that in mind. We can tell you when and where you can use your energy in order to fit whatever need that we're going through. And I'm sure that a lot of this has to do with climate change and the fact that, yes, they're using some inefficient means of energy production over in California. I'm sure that some of that does have to do with some of this. But yeah, I mean, you're sitting here with an elderly population that's vulnerable, and people, like I said, that are paying for this electricity that can't use it. Well, some of them may not be paying for the electricity right now, actually, because I know that California is still very, very locked down and can't exactly go back to work on some cases. We saw some of that in San Francisco where people aren't allowed to go to work because it's outside only for your haircuts and everything, but there are some other things that go along with that. I'm sure the state is paying bills for a lot of people right now to make sure that they keep everything going, but still, customers are paying for this energy, and there's no place for the government to come in and say, okay, you paid for this, but you can't use it. So, for those of you in California, I suggest very much that you get out of California and get yourselves inland because, yeah, there's no need for this. There is no need for the government to come down and tell you when and where you can use the electricity and other things that you pay for. There is not. All right, let's keep going here from another one from Twitter. Now, this is an interesting tweet thread that I saw. And I wanted to highlight a couple of the tweets on it here because there are some things that we need to know about this. From Charlotte Alter rather, was blue checked. I'm not sure who this person is. I know she's a writer of some sort, and she has an importance to a point that she does have the verified blue check mark. I've spent the last 3 days speaking to almost every person I've seen on the streets in Kenosha and Racine, and folks, I hate to break it to you, but nobody gives a shit about any of the scandals you're tweeting about. It is impossible for me to describe how much they don't give a shit. It's like they give negative shits. There's this mentality on Twitter that's like, this one huge scandal will sink Trump and with this group of voters, and I can conclusively report that this is bullshit. Here's why. Many of the people who tweet about politics assume that voters behave according to a particular logic. Like Trump insults women, therefore women will thus... Excuse me. I had a cigarette over the weekend here. It's like my biannual cigarette. And I remember why I quit smoking, because I can feel it in my throat right now. Like Trump insults women, therefore women will dislike Trump. Or Trump breaks the law, therefore law and order. RS will break them from him. Or ours, rather, will break from him. You think voter logic is like A goes into B, goes into C, goes into D. In actuality, voter logic is more like A goes into purple, goes into banana, goes into 18. This is true on both sides, by the way, not just MAGA folks. Also, the most pervasive bias in political coverage is not left versus right, it's follows politics versus doesn't follow politics. By default, nearly everyone who covers politics falls into the follows politics category, which makes it really hard to understand people who don't. So a lot of people that think a lot, or who think a lot about politics, will say, like, what about the Hatch Act? And normal people are like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Or politics people will be like, according to the polls and modeling, if X% swing in Y direction, then Z will happen. And normal people are like, what? It's worth noting that man on the street reporting is highly anecdotal. This is by no means a comprehensive analysis because it totally depends on who decides to talk to me. But taken alongside polls and other data, it can be a helpful way to learn what's landing and what's not. One more point, REEQ, a side effect of the datafication of political expertise, is that the people who can read polls are perceived to be smarter than the people who can read people. So, you have all these guys crunching numbers who aren't actually listening to normal people. Listening means hearing what people are saying as well as what they're saying. Listening also means not ambushing voters like, but aren't you upset about X or Y, or bullying them. Listening means making sure that they feel like they're being heard and not judged. Just saying there's a lot of politics dudes who love to talk and hate to listen. And this whole thread here is right 100% on the money for every point that she put off of this. Now, if you're tuning into this show, there's a fair assumption that you're very into politics. You understand the Hatch Act. You understand the scandal. What the scandal is supposed to mean, what the media is trying to tell you. You understand a lot of this. But the reality is, just like Charlotte Alter says, the majority of people out there don't give a damn about the Hatch Act or anything else that goes along with that. The majority of people out there don't give a fuck about any of this. For a reason. And I pointed this out to numerous people here. The majority of the people that are going to go out to the polls, that are going to go out to vote this time through, see a couple things. First off, they see their cities burning and rioting. They see businesses being burned down. They see people not being able to make a living anymore. They see all of that. And they say, okay, what can I do to stop this? The guy that's either going to fund the terrorists and the rioters and try and give them clearance to go out and do more of this, or the guy that's going to call out for law and order to get these people arrested and up off the streets. And the big one for me, and I think this is going to be the reason that Trump actually goes up and gets his next term in office, is the majority of the people out there are going to look at the last 3 years, look at the purchases that they made, sometimes for the first time, the families that they started, and all the good money that they had in their pockets for the first 3 years of the Trump presidency before their Democrat governor came out and shut their economies down and shut their jobs down. They're going to look back at this and say, hey, you know what? For the last 3 years, I had a little bit more money. The average person doesn't care about the Hatch Act or Ukraine or Russia or any of the rest of that. They just want to go to work, earn their living, come home, feed their families, and go on about their business. They don't care about who's in Washington except to take some time and discuss what the news said about the guy. They don't care. It doesn't affect them. They're never going to meet this person. And that's something that we actually need to look forward in and carry forward as we go to the polls going forward. I've been a Federalist for a long time, 10th Amendment extremist, you could say. The 10th Amendment should be the governing doctrine of our country. Because you shouldn't care what some person in Washington, D.C., that you are never going to meet has to say about how you live your life. Whereas you should be able to elect somebody to represent you, to send out there. But the people that should be making the majority of laws that affect your life, you should have to face them down in the grocery store. Or any other public discourse. You should have to see them at the school board meetings, at the PTA meetings. Or any other thing that you see. Maybe they be a teacher in your district. Maybe they be the banker, somebody else like that. But somebody from your area. Somebody that you have to see every day has to look you in the eye and tell you why they think that some law needs to affect you. That's the way our politics needs to be run. Not these bureaucrats and lifelong politicians that go to Washington, D.C. and barely come back to their home districts. Like I said, somebody you're never going to meet is going to tell you how to live your life. And all these scandals and everything, they're trying to do something to paint every president in a bad light. And it didn't start with Trump. It went through Clinton. It went through Bush. Well, Bush was a warmongering asshole anyway, but it went through Obama. It went through everybody, every politician in my lifetime, all the way back to Reagan, and even before that. They still try to pull these obscure scandals with these obscure laws against these people. And in reality, like I said, the majority of people just want to look at their wallet and see it get fatter. So good on Charlotte Alter for this thread. I'm going to save this thread because I think more people need to see this, and I'm going to retweet it out a little bit more too. All right. Speaking of politics here and people that shouldn't matter to anybody but still do, Newsweek has one here from Emma Nolan, Candace Owens versus Cardi B feud explained, everything that they've said about one another. Cardi B has clashed with right-wing commentator Candace Owens in a bitter Twitter feud in which she called the rapper dumb and illiterate. Yeah, that's probably not divisive or anything. The drama started when Owens, 31, took part in an interview with fellow conservative pundit Ben Shapiro, where she slammed Democratic nominee Joe Biden for taking part in an interview with Cardi B, real name Belcalis Marlenis El Manzar. Last month for Elle magazine, Owens likened Biden doing an interview with the WAP rapper to Donald Trump being interviewed by Justin Bieber, and went on to say that the former vice president thinks that black people are stupid. However, Cardi, 27, was hit back at Owens by saying that Biden took the time with her because she is influential. And she had the #1 song in the world at the time, which I still don't understand. It's not a secret that I use my platform to encourage people to vote, she said in a video on Instagram. I love politics. Today, Candace Owens said some real nasty things about me. On the success of WAP, she explained, I have millions of followers. I pay millions in taxes. I have the number one song in this country. That says horrible things about this country, I'm sorry. I have the number one song in the UK. I have the number one song in Australia. I have the number one song in New Zealand. Wow. Maybe it is time for society to collapse. Just like I can make millions of people pop their pussy, I can make millions of people go vote. Cardi went on to condemn Owens for being a cheerleader for Trump and slamming the pundit for being pimped out by white men. You're a beautiful black woman. You talk great, amazing, and this man didn't have the decency to let you talk at the Republican convention. Owens clapped back in her Instagram video, claiming that Cardi B is hurting Black America. You continually keep saying you have a number one song. It means shit, Owens said. Nobody cares about a song about your wet-ass pussy. Nothing has to do with Black America, and whether you're helping or hurting, right now you're hurting Black America. Owens also suggested that statistically, Cardi's husband, Offset, is more likely to kill her than a police officer. A later response from Cardi saw the rapper say she was sad for Owens, adding, This girl, though, she makes me sad. She have an identity issue. She hates her own kind. Which, yes, that is one of the things that they... And this is the identity politics about all of this as well, is if you go out and you're black and you support Republicans, it's because you hate your own kind. And that's been launched against me before. I got asked directly at one point if I was a Republican by a group of black people. And I said yes, because at the time I was. I'm no longer, because I look at some of the failings of that particular party. I'm no longer a Republican, but I got asked straight out if I was a Republican, and I said yes. And the first response that I got is, "Oh man, this guy, he want to kill us all." No, I don't. I just want the spending to stop and government to get down to a more local level, so it can cater better to the needs of the people. But that's what we're going to see out of this, and that's what we're going to see forever. And Cardi B is honestly probably a lot closer to either LP or GOP than she'd like to admit, especially given the fact that she looked at her taxes last year and said, why the fuck am I paying all these taxes? The seeds are there for Cardi B to get into a more liberty mind. But she hasn't been able to come across it because of the pressure from the color of her skin to vote a certain way. But I'm sorry. The color of your skin should not determine anything about you at all. It should be the quality of your character. But that's what we're seeing up off of this here. Like I say, this was a slow news day, or slow news weekend, so we can pull on little cultural influence stories like this. Let's keep going here from the Daily Wire. Biden teaches history. A black guy invented the light bulb, not a white guy named Edison. From Hank Berrien. On Thursday, noted historian and Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden reinvented history as he preached at a church, pontificating. People fear that's which is different. We gotta, for example, why in God's name didn't we teach history in history classes? A black guy invented the light bulb, not a white guy named Edison. No. Despite Biden's false notion of history, genuine historians would point out that Thomas Edison did indeed invent the incandescent light bulb, as the Department of Energy wrote in 2013 under the Obama administration. And there's a lengthy transcript to that, but the breakdown of the transcript, which I read earlier, is the fact that, yes, Edison did not invent the filament that we use for the light bulb. That credit does go to a black man. But Edison did invent the bulb in which we vacuum seal the filament so it doesn't oxidize and burn up. And that's where we go on next to this Daily Wire article. Biden may have been referring to Lewis Latimer live science ads several months after the 1879 patent was granted. Edison and his team discovered that a carbonized bamboo filament could burn for more than 1,200 hours. Bamboo was used for filaments in Edison's bulbs until it began to be replaced by longer-lasting materials in the 1880s and early 1900s. In 1882, Lewis Howard Latimer, one of Edison's researchers, patented a more efficient way of manufacturing carbon filaments. So, yeah. I have no words for that. Yes, Edison invented the light bulb. That's common knowledge at this point. Yes, he had help from other people. So, okay, yeah, maybe we'll go and teach more in the classroom about Lewis Latimer. Maybe. Maybe that would be fair. But to outright lie like Biden did. I want to see more of this man up on the campaign trail. I really do. I want to see more of what he has to say about this. I want to learn history according to Joe Biden. So yes, let's get him up out of the basement. Let's get him on a stage, far, far away from the script, and just let the man talk. All right, let's keep going here from another tweet that we have here. A little bit more on some Biden news. Let's get this paused here so I can get your ears on and everything. But from Chris Martin, Joe Biden asked staff to call in reporters because he doesn't have his list, which means he doesn't have his list of safe people that'll feed him softball questions. Let's have a listen to what Biden has to say on this one.
I guess, are you calling on people or how am I don't have a list, so you go ahead and call. I guess, are you calling on people or how am I don't have a list, so you go ahead and call.
Okay, so you're up out of your basement at this point and you're taking questions and you want to be the president of the United States, the chief diplomat for this country. So it would behoove you at this point to not work from a list of specific softball interviews. It would very much behoove you, Mr. Biden, to be able to take a question from anybody and stay on your feet to do so. But I don't see anything. I don't see any evidence that you can do this. But yes, go up there and keep telling America that you are the best choice for the presidency and see what they do in November because, yeah. This is not the person that I want negotiating with Kim Jong-un. Not one bit. No, hey, can I get somebody from North Korea that's on my list of safe people to talk to? No, not going to happen. All right, let's keep going here from the Daily Wire. University of Chicago students set up occupation, demand campus police be disbanded from Emily Zanotti. University of Chicago students staged an occupation demanding that the school's provost, K.E. Lee, abolish the campus police department and expand the school's commitment to diversity. But not everything is going smoothly for the student group. A similar group of protesters occupied the University of Chicago Police Department's offices earlier this summer as part of national anti-racism and anti-police brutality demonstrations that happened in response to George Floyd's death. While in the custody of Minneapolis Police Department, that occupation was cut short, however, when UChicago campus police refused to allow occupiers to get pizza deliveries while inside their building, according to the College Fix. Yeah, no, I can see where that would start to be a problem. And did not allow occupiers to use the building's bathroom facilities, forcing them to choose between standing for social justice and relieving their bladders. And that is an important thing to go along with this too, because they're out protesting. They're having a sit-in for the police department, for the department of that which they hate. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words on that one there. And, I mean, you see how people use public bathrooms in general. You've all seen that nasty gas station bathroom that hasn't been cleaned in 6 months and people peed everywhere and crapped everywhere. There's towels everywhere and everything. People will go out and destroy a building or a bathroom. Just on normal circumstances, imagine what they're going to do to a department that they hate. So yes, no, absolutely the police department should have shut the bathroom off to them. They don't know what they're going to go in there and do, if they're going to go in there and start a fire, or smoke a bunch of weed, or throw crap everywhere, or write with crap on the walls, or they have no idea what these protesters are going to do. That is like obvious 101, number one, intelligence right there. But let's keep going here. The new occupation, the Washington Free Beacon reports, is demanding the abolition of the university's police force, the formation of cultural centers, and the development of a critical race and ethnic studies department. The new department, the group writes, would be required to teach revolutionary histories, abolish all academic penalties, and redistribute resources to students and communities of color. Abolish all academic penalties. So you can go to school and do nothing but fuck off and smoke weed, and still you go into school and still get your degree. Yes, let's make freshman through senior year of college into 13th through 16th grade, because that's what they're going for at this point. They're just trying to make this an extended high school. An extended high school away from your parents. And that'll be the next thing, is that they're just going to stay living with their parents until they're 22. Well, most of them do that anyway, but still. Yeah, I can see this going over well. The University of Chicago's provost responded to the protesters' demands in an open letter, flatly refusing to defund the U Chicago police, or campus police, and noting that protesters have repeatedly declined invitations to private meetings with the school administration. I have offered to meet with the protesters, the letter said. In fact, since their occupation of the UCPD headquarters on June 11th, we have communicated a standing invitation for representatives of the group to meet with me. We reiterated that offer again this week. However, they have refused, insisting that even the initial meeting must be conducted in a public forum and focus on how to implement their demand to defund and disband the UCPD. They have rejected a constructive dialogue about their concerns, and the UCPD, of course they have, because they don't want to actually go in and meet with you and figure out what it is that they can do. They want to pull you out in public, let you talk for a sentence or two, and then start shouting you down with their demands and be able to get more people into their mob to do so. They don't want to meet privately with you. They absolutely don't want to meet privately with you. They just want to get out and shout until you go away and cower away in fear and acquiesce to their demand. They want to throw a temper tantrum until you give them what they want, essentially. I don't know how it is in Illinois either, or with the University of Chicago. I would assume that it follows a similar pattern to what we saw over at the University of Wisconsin on its various campuses. And I went to the University of Wisconsin. I went to Parkside briefly. I did not graduate from there, partially because, well, details that I don't want to go into, and partially because I saw that the markets were failing on white-collar jobs. So I decided to go into something a little bit more blue-collar that I knew was going to be there forever. But one of the things that I noted, and I actually did some research into this on the campus police for the University of Wisconsin, is the fact that, as far as I understand from the way it was explained to me, is that the campus police is an extension of the state patrol. Therefore, they essentially have all the same jurisdictions as a state trooper. They're just relegated to work on the campus, and possibly a more peaceful assignment. And I'm sure that, being a public school, the University of Illinois Chicago would probably be the same thing. So that would mean that they would have to take it up with Springfield down in Illinois. They'd have to go down to the Capitol and talk with the state police. But that's internal politics for the state of Illinois, which is already a mess anyway. And they might be a part of the city police as well, so they would just have to go down to City Hall and discuss that with them. But that is something that I am unfortunately ignorant to and I don't understand. So I can't really speak too much to that. I think it's time for us to keep going off of this one here. From the USA Today, I don't know why when I get it off the mobile site, they don't give me a headline off of this. I don't understand that. But apparently there's a bill circulating around the House to go with a marijuana decriminalization, even if they put a massive amount of federal tax on it. So let's see what we have to say to this. The Democratic-controlled House will vote on legalizing marijuana at the federal level for the first time in the chamber's history later this month, a hurdle Democrats and advocates are celebrating as Congress grapples with a host of pressing issues before the November election. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said the House would vote on the MORE Act, Another acronym. During the week of September 21st, the measures sponsored by Representative Jerry Nadler would remove marijuana from the federal list of controlled substances and expunge some marijuana-related criminal records, though it would still be up to states to pass their own regulations on the sale of marijuana, as it should have been from the very start of all of this. It's about time, Nadler told the USA Today, calling it a historic vote, marking the beginning of the end of the federal government's 40-year, very misguided crusade against marijuana. Maritza Perez, director of the Office of National Affairs at the Drug Policy Alliance, a group advocating for the decriminalization of drugs, said her organization was thrilled, saying the bill would begin to repair some of the harms caused by the war on drugs in communities of color and low-income communities. The House's vote comes as views of marijuana have changed in Washington and increased numbers of Americans support the legalization of the drug, whether for recreational or medicinal purposes, and while this bill is likely to fail in the Republican majority Senate, of fucking course it is, advocates still saw the vote as a step forward. I don't even know if 2 years ago I would have said that an act like this would have passed, said Adam Goers, Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Columbia Care, which operates marijuana dispensaries across the country. According to a 2019 Gallup survey, 66% of Americans supported legalization, though support did differ by party. More than three-quarters of Democrats said they supported legalization, as opposed to about half of Republicans. Representative Ed Perlmutter told the USA Today the country has moved its views on marijuana. With Congress's action, there's a recognition of where the states are, and we're not going to put the genie back in the bottle when it comes to cannabis, he said, referring to the states who have already legalized marijuana in some form. And we just need to move forward with these pieces of legislation and get the federal and state laws to align with each other. Marijuana is currently regulated by a patchwork of laws at the state and federal levels, and Goer said legalization at the federal would add normalization for businesses and states by legalizing marijuana at the federal level. 11 states and the District of Columbia have legalized recreational marijuana, and 33 states and the District of Columbia, Guam and Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands have legalized medical marijuana, but marijuana is still illegal at the federal level. And that's what it should have been right from the beginning. There should be no federal Schedule 1. Period. Whatever you want to do with your body is your own business. Now, if a state wants to decide what you can do with your life and put in your body, that gives people the opportunity to move out of state and go somewhere where it's legal. There should have never been a federal Schedule 1, ever. Now, of course, they're going to go back up and tax the shit out of this. And, I mean, you're going to see people buying this shit up left and right, especially if they do it on a federal level. You're going to see people buying this shit up left and right. You're going to see a very, very stoned couple of years. Because it's new, and it's fun, and it's cool. And it used to be illegal, and this is us giving it back to the man, even though the man has come down and said that we can use this. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of this for a couple of years, and I really think that the novelty is going to fade. It's just like when you turn 21 and you can go out and drink for the first time and legally, even though you've been drinking since you were 15, and you're out at the bars, getting hammered, drunk, off your ass, daily, nightly, because it's new and it's cool and it's fun. And then all of a sudden it just kind of peters off, and you realize everything else that goes along with it, and the thrill is gone. And then you're drinking a glass of whiskey while you're watching TV or something at home every night or every other night, or you just stop doing it altogether. Yeah, this is going to go really, really well, and you're going to harvest a lot of taxes off of this for a few years. And yeah, I really do think that this is going to go away after a little while, because the thrill will go away. It's legal. So that's what I see up off of this here. I mean, if I'm wrong, go ahead and tell me. But that's the way that I see all of this. And of course, they want to tax the shit out of it, because it's going to be new and fun, and everybody's going to buy it. So hey, we can pay off some stuff with it. I don't know. We'll figure that out as the bridge crosses. Like Goer said, it's very unlikely that this will pass the GOP-led Senate, which is a shame. I mean, the Democrats are probably jumping up and down and celebrating the fact that McConnell won't take this up and it won't pass, because, honestly, I think that Trump would sign his name to this, and that would almost guarantee his reelection. Not that I don't think it's not guaranteed already, but yeah, that would be another key to the White House right there. If he went through and signed this, I think that would almost guarantee him a spot for 2020 into 2024. I almost guarantee. So that's what we're seeing up off of this here. I've got just a few more here. So let's see what's going on across the pond here. Serbia and Kosovo agreement results from Trump's different brand of diplomacy. Opinion contributor Richard Grinnell, who used to be our ambassador to Germany. The views expressed by the contributors are their own and not the view of the Hill. President Alexander Vučić of Serbia and Prime Minister Abdullah Hoti of Kosovo took an enormous step toward a long-term resolution of their historic conflict on Friday morning. At the White House, under the auspices of President Trump, President Vučić and Prime Minister Hoti signed a brokered commitment to achieve economic normalization between the peoples of Serbia and Kosovo. Ever since 2017, the U.S. position on the Serbia-Kosovo conflict has been that steps towards economic normalization will dilute the power and importance of the dispute's hot-button political matters. The parties have agreed to construct a roadway and railway link between their respective capitals, Belgrade and Pristina. They have committed to a joint feasibility study on options for linking the rail infrastructure to a deep-sea port in the Adriatic. Both parties will work with the U.S. International Development Finance Corporations and Export-Import Bank to support these projects and provide financing for small and medium-sized enterprises. All these agreements will enable a more free and efficient flow of people and goods across the border between Serbia and Kosovo. As for the border itself, Serbia and Kosovo have agreed to open and operationalize the Merdare Common Crossing Point facility to recognize each other's diplomas and professional certificates and to join the mini Schengen zone announced by Serbia, Albania, and North Macedonia in October of 2019. It soon will be easier than ever for Serbs and Kosovars to live, work, trade, and study each other's neighborhoods, companies, and universities. Perhaps most importantly for the people on the ground, the parties involved in the negotiations, and for the history and future of the region, is the new agreement to expedite the efforts to locate and identify the remains of missing persons from the war that ended only 2 decades ago. Both parties have pledged to identify and implement long-term durable solutions for refugees and internally displaced persons, and each has committed to identifying a point of contact to lead these efforts within their respective government ministries, coordinate between the capitals, and provide an annual update on the number of cases resolved and pending. The agreement also implements a 1-year moratorium on Kosovo's search for new membership in the international organizations, and a 1-year moratorium for Serbia's de-recognition campaign against Kosovo, two of the biggest open wounds in the conflict that are now on the path towards resolution. Friday's agreement reflects President Trump's long-held vision for Kosovo and Serbia to focus on economic development, job creation, and industrial developments as prerequisites to the permanent resolution of political disputes. His belief from the start has been that trust is built first in the process of creating opportunities and futures for young people, rather than in settlement of scores, symbolism, and righting of historical wrongs. The U.S. will spend the next year implementing these new agreements, and the people and governments of Kosovo and Serbia have the full trust of the U.S. government to carry them forward. Now, I am reading this right now because Ron Helton pointed this out over on Twitter, the fact that nobody was covering this over on the news. You likely are just, if you're listening to this now or back over on the future, on the replay of this, you are likely hearing about this for the very first time right now. The fact that this peace deal even happened. Now, yes, we heard about the Israeli and Hamas drawdowns, and the Israeli and the UAE drawdowns, and the peace deal that went along through them, things that we would have never seen before this. And John McCain, for all of his wrongs, is probably rolling over in his grave right now, thinking of all the wars that he started that are being ended under this presidency. Who ever thought that we would have seen Serbia and Kosovo come together and find an agreement after everything that we saw between the two of them under the Clinton administration? And the fact that we were helping the Kosovars during the Clinton administration, supplying them with money and weapons off of this. And now we're sitting here brokering a historic peace deal between the two of them, and nobody wants to sit up and talk about it. Like him or hate him, this president is bringing peace throughout the world. I don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, The Middle East has been in a state of conflict for 5,000 years, and the Eastern Bloc has been in a state of conflict here and there since the Iron Curtain fell. But we're starting to see some progress in world peace. Coming out of a man that everyone said would cause World War III. Think about that one for a second. And of course, the only way that we can hear about it is The Hill putting out an opinion piece from the former German diplomat. So that's what we're seeing about this, and good on Kosovo and Serbia. I hope that you have decades of lasting peace, maybe even a century of lasting peace. All right, let's keep going here. On the other side of this came to me also via Twitter from Elaine, the libertarian redhead who sits at the left side of the screen on Monday nights. Make sure you tune in and check the two of us out tonight. U.S. troops to start extended exercises in Lithuania amid tensions over Belarus. U.S. troops and tanks will arrive in Lithuania on Friday for a 2-month deployment near the Belarus border, but the government said the move was not a message to its Russian-backed neighbor, where protests continued over a disputed election. In an announcement on Wednesday evening, NATO member Lithuania said U.S. troops will be moved from Poland for pre-planned military exercises. These are defensive in nature and not directed against any neighbor, including Belarus. However, the troops are arriving earlier and staying longer than the government had indicated before the outbreak of protest in Belarus over the August 9th election that returned President Alexander Lukashenko, a key ally of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, to power. Lukashenko has denied the accusations by Belarus opposition and Western countries that the vote was rigged and has resisted protesters' demands to step down. He has accused NATO of a military buildup near Belarus's borders, something the alliance denied, and has said he will ask for Russian military help if needed. The deployment in Lithuania, which will begin on Friday, will last until November, includes 500 American troops and 40 vehicles, such as Abrams tanks and Bradley armored troop carriers, a Lithuanian army spokesman said. On July 29th, Lithuanian Defense Minister Raimundas Karabolis told BNS Wire that the United States would send a battalion-sized troop contingent between 300 and 1,000 soldiers in September for 2 weeks training beginning in the middle of the month. And yes, Elaine pointed out correctly, the fact of the matter is we're not going to be bringing a lot of the troops home, even if we start achieving peace in some of these areas like Afghanistan. We are still going to be doing military exercises. And there is an extent to a point of this that this is shaking a big stick right now. So something else to keep in mind as we do so. Shaking the big stick to make sure that none of this spills off over into the rest of Europe, because there are major protests going on in there. Or the fact of the matter, the other side of it, is that the president in Belarus has said, yes, I'll turn to Russia for military help if I need to, and making sure that conflict doesn't spill over into the rest of Europe as well. I don't know what's happening over all of this. I am painfully ignorant when it comes to foreign diplomacy, unfortunately, but that is something to keep in mind. The fact of the matter is correct. We probably will not be bringing a lot of our troops home right away. Let's keep going here. From NBC News, Congresswoman blocked from touring mail facility by Postal Service police. From Phil McCausland, the U.S. Postal Service police barred Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz from entering 2 mail sorting facilities in Florida in the early morning hours on Friday, threatening to escort her from the property if she didn't leave. The Florida Democrat, who sits on the House Oversight Committee, has aimed to inspect a mail plant in Opa-locka and the Northwest Miami-Dade. Wasserman Schultz said union members told her about conditions at the processing centers and shared pictures that showed pallets of undelivered mail marked with the receipt date of July 23rd. Her offices said those photos were sent to them earlier this week and raised further questions about how the Postal Service is being run under the leadership of Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, a close ally of President Donald Trump. NBC News was not able to independently verify the photo, reportedly undelivered mail. If DeJoy thinks he can just throw a bedsheet over what's going on behind these doors, he is sadly mistaken. It looked like the postmaster had something to hide, Wasserman Schultz said in a statement. Without access to these public facilities, the public is blindfolded to the problem or fixing taking places there. DeJoy cannot delay the mail and delay oversight of these facilities. The holdup of mail has come under intense scrutiny as millions failed to receive everything from the prescription drugs to financial documents and online orders in recent months. The drop in service led to two tense congressional hearings. At the House hearing last week, Wasserman Schultz and her colleagues questioned whether DeJoy had intentionally hamstrung the federal agency. The Postal Service maintained Wasserman Schultz has stopped from entering because she did not provide enough notice of her visit. Yeah, you do need to actually take some time and provide this. From what I understand, the Postal Service is actually pretty well protected on its internal. I've never been inside of one of the mail sorting facilities, but from what I understand, it's pretty well protected because tampering with mail is a federal crime and a problem. So yes, absolutely, you should protect the inside of your facility and make sure that you know who's coming in there and make sure that they have enough advance notice for this. Now, do I think DeJoy had anything to do with this? 95% no. Do I think that union leaders are balking at the fact that DeJoy is now the Postmaster General? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I absolutely 100% could see a postal union doing that. 100%. Coming back and hiding stuff in to balk at the fact that they have to work longer hours and their overtime is getting cut and they have to work harder while they're... Yeah, I could absolutely see a union leader, especially coming out of a public sector union, doing something like this. Absolutely. To try and throw somebody else up under the bus. So this requires some investigation. I don't know if this is true. I have not been able to verify the photo myself, and neither has NBC. I don't know if this is real. I've never seen the photo. I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes at the post office. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know. But Wasserman Schultz thinks that she can just barge right into a postal facility. And no, she's not above the law as much as anybody else is. All right, I've got 3 more here, and then we will do a thing that restores my faith in humanity. I think these are going to be just some quick hitters, too. Tennessee woman who died 6 months ago received a letter last week saying she's COVID-19 positive. From Ash Shao. Losing a loved one during the coronavirus pandemic can be especially difficult, but one man in Tennessee lost his mother 2 weeks before the first reported case in his county. Last week, however, he received a letter telling him his deceased mother tested positive for COVID-19, a test she allegedly took in June, 3 months after her death. Troy Whittington received the letter from Shelby County Health Department last week. Newsweek reported the letter explained his mother had been tested on June 20th and should self-isolate for 10 days. Nothing in the letter made sense, as Sandra Whittington died of COPD on February 16th, 2 weeks before the first COVID-19 was detected in Shelby County. I'm just having a hard time understanding how they can say someone has COVID-19 when they're not even alive, Troy told WATN. It's been 6 months, almost 7, since she passed away. There was no testing that was done at the time. On her death certificate, it was stated that she died. What the cause of death was, and it was not COVID-19, it was COPD, Whittington added. Whittington told the outlet that she called the SCHD to get to the bottom of this and was told that his mother took a COVID-19 test on June 20th. It's impossible for someone who is to be tested on June 20th who passed away on February 16th, Whittington told WATN. I tried to call the health department this morning and asked them what was going on. She said that she would get me a supervisor. She was sorry for the mistake, and she couldn't tell me any information until she got a supervisor, and I haven't heard back from them. Yeah, you want to tell me about all these numbers that they're coming out with of all these positive cases and all the deaths that have been attributed to COVID-19? 185,000 people, 200,000 people, whatever the fuck the number is at this point. And then you see shit like this happening? No. Nothing about this disease has made sense. And I really can't take anything seriously out of any of this anymore. They have been monkeying with the numbers since the beginning of this entire thing to try and make it seem scarier than it is and make you stay home and tell you that if you step 6 inches outside of your home when the lockdown is in place, then you will instantly get COVID-19 because it's everywhere. And if you get COVID-19, then you will instantly die from it. It is a death sentence. If you test positive for COVID-19, the phone next to you rings and you hear somebody on the other end say, 7 days. So that's what they're trying to tell you here. And yeah, absolutely. You can't take a COVID-19 test in June if you died in February. All right. Next one here. I'm going to skip that one for tomorrow because I'm not going to dick around with the ad blocker off of that. So last one that I have here then comes from Libertarian Redhead over on Twitter. My wonderful co-host Elaine. Guaranteed a customer did this, not the store. Carrie B writes in a Hobby Lobby. USA vote Trump is the picture that was put up there. Now Elaine guarantees that this was a customer that did this, not the Hobby Lobby. I'm going to go on and say that's probably, given it's Hobby Lobby, like if this was in Target or something, I would say yes, guarantee a customer did this, not Target. Given that it's Hobby Lobby, that actually might be a 50-50 proposition. That might not be a guaranteed customer thing. But I thought that was entertaining. So I hope that you guys would as well. And the last one that I have here, something that restores my faith in humanity. Now, I have been very critical of everything that's happened with the Kenosha protests and the riots. I've even been critical of the police. I don't think Jacob Blake should have been where he was. I don't think they should have shot him 7 times. Maybe one shot would have been plenty. I still think that there was nothing ill done. I don't like the fact that the shots rang out, but everything was justified. The guy had a knife in his hand. He was reaching into a car where his girlfriend and his 3 kids were. And he was on something because he got tased and he got up and was still walking away from it calmly. But the reality of it is, now he has come out and told people to change their ways. He's got a second chance, and he's going to try and do right with it, I guess. But let's read this, because this restores my faith in humanity, from Amanda Prestigiacomo over on the Daily Wire. Jacob Blake shares bedside message. Change y'all's lives. It's nothing but pain. On Saturday, a lawyer for Jacob Blake posted a video of the 29-year-old sharing a message from his hospital bed that encouraged people to change their lives, emphasizing the pain he has suffered after he was shot by police last month in Wisconsin during an attempted arrest. I just want to say, man, to all the young cats out there, and even the older ones, older than me, there's a lot more life to live out there, man, he says in the video, which was posted to social media. Your life, he continued, snapping his fingers, and not just your life, your legs, something that you need to move around and move forward in life, can be taken from you like this, man. And I promise you, the type of shit that you'll go through, staples. I got staples in my back, staples in my damn stomach. You don't want to have to deal with this shit, man. 24 hours, every 24 hours, it's pain. It's nothing but pain. It hurts to breathe. It hurts to sleep. It hurts to move from side to side. It hurts to eat, he added. Please, I'm telling you, change your lives out there, Blake pleaded. We could stick together, make some money, make everything easier for our people out here, man, because it's so much time that has been wasted. During an attempted arrest last month, Kenosha police shot Blake 7 times after he opened his car door and reached inside the vehicle during an attempted arrest, media reports. And clips of the video indicate officers were initially called on the scene to respond to a domestic disturbance. Blake is now reportedly paralyzed from the waist down. As highlighted by the Daily Wire, Blake was charged on July 6th with multiple offenses relating to allegations from a woman identified in court documents only as LNB, Blake's ex-girlfriend. And that is the transcript of the criminal complaint. And honestly, this restores my faith in humanity. Jacob Blake was shot in the back 7 times for brandishing a knife at police officers. And he survived. He's been given a second chance. He's going to go back and turn his life around. Now, don't get me wrong. With the GoFundMe that went out in Jacob Blake's name and the fact that he's got $2 million off of it, he is going to have a leg up over most of the other people he's telling to stand down and change their lives. Don't get me wrong, that is absolutely true. He is going to have a leg up over the rest of them. But the fact of the matter is that he, somebody that the community is looking to, the community has sainted it even at this point, has come out and said, I'm going to turn my life around. You people should turn your life around too. That's powerful stuff. And that is going to go a long way in these protests. Stop crime. Stop the looting. Go out and earn your keep. I fucked up. I fucked around and I found out, is essentially what he's saying here. I did bad stuff, and I wound up with 7 bullets in my back, and now it hurts to eat. Don't wind up like me. This is powerful messaging right here. And I love this. This restores my faith in humanity. Because he could have just as easily said, man, fuck the police. They did this to me. Go out and tear them all down. And he didn't. He's chosen to go the peaceful route. This is amazing to me. The fact that, once again, he's been given the second chance at life and chosen to do good with it. I love this. I love seeing this. And I hope that this does draw a quell to some of the protests and riots that we see across the country. I hope this quells some of this, and I hope this does lead people to live a better life, to live more peacefully, to know their neighbors, to get out there, to make that money, and make the best out of their lives. Because Jacob Blake almost found out that it can be gone in an instant if you do something stupid. Alright, that's what I have here for today here. We will be back here tonight with the Red and Ed show, so come on in and tune in. We've got a great show waiting here and a great weekly roundup to check in with that. Otherwise, we will be back here tomorrow with more contemporary and hopefully a little bit bigger live audience here. I know it's a holiday, so I didn't think there were going to be a lot of people here, but hopefully we'll get a few more people in and have some more people to talk to and thank, and a few more people to talk back and forth with each other. So, we will see you either tonight or tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.